Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a journey into the world of Kylie Jenner, a name you probably know, entrepreneurship, social media star, makeup mogul, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Our aim isn't just to, recount her life story, but to really dig into the key things that launched her into global fame and made her, well, one of the youngest billionaires out there.
Right. And we'll be using detailed accounts of her life from basically childhood right up to her current influence to try and unpack those insights for you.
Exactly. It's a story that gives us a really fascinating look at how celebrity is changing the huge power of, digital platforms.
Yeah, and the big shifts happening in the beauty industry itself. It's really interesting to track how she went from being part of this already super public family
Right.
to eventually becoming this, independent force in her own right.
Okay, so let's start there, those early years. Kylie Kristen Jenner, born in L.A., August 10th, 1997, and of course the family name, already huge.
Oh, yeah.
Her parents, Caitlyn Jenner, the Olympic champion from '76.
Decathlon gold medalist, yeah.
And Kris Jenner, who was previously married to Robert Kardashian, famous from the O.J. Simpson trial. That created this big, very, very visible family. Kylie's the youngest of 6 siblings. There's Kendall, her full sister, and then Kourtney, Kim, Khloe, and Rob Kardashian from Kris's first marriage. Growing up like that, it's kind of hard to picture.
It really is a unique situation, isn't it? The sources we looked at mention how her childhood was just fundamentally different from what most people experience as, normal.
Sure. Beyond just the money, I guess.
Yeah. Beyond the material stuff, think about the constant media attention, understanding branding and public image from, day one. That early immersion probably gave her a very specific awareness of how the world sees and consumes celebrity.
And that awareness definitely sharpened with Keeping Up with the Kardashians, starting in 2007. She was only 10.
10 years old, yeah.
And initially, she seemed pretty reserved on the show, right? The quieter one in the middle of all that, that family dynamic.
She definitely was quieter at first. But as the show blew up and the seasons went on, you started seeing more of her own personality come through. Even within that huge family story, she was beginning to connect with the audience kind of on her own terms.
That's a good point. So even though she was part of this big collective, the seeds of her own identity were kind of being planted.
Exactly. And the sources mentioned she really wanted early on to be known for more than just being Kim Kardashian's little sister.
Right, to have her own thing.
Yeah, that drive for autonomy, for her own distinct brand, that likely became a really powerful motivator later on. And her decision to switch from regular school to homeschooling.
Focus on modeling and business stuff.
Right, modeling, business, filming. It just shows how proactive she was even then in trying to shape her own path.
And that path led towards modeling. And didn't she launch a fashion line with Kendall? Kendall plus Kylie?
That's right, the Kendall plus Kylie line. But then came, a really pivotal moment. All that intense public focus, media focus, on her lips looking fuller.
Yes, the lips. That was huge.
Huge. And first she said it was just makeup, lip liner tricks. But later admitted to getting lip fillers.
Right.
What's really interesting, though, is how she didn't just shy away from all that scrutiny. She actually saw an opportunity in it.
Okay, now that is fascinating. Instead of seeing the public's obsession as just, a personal thing.
Yeah.
She saw it as something she could maybe build on commercially. That shows a pretty sharp understanding of, how attention works, doesn't it? How to grab it and, make money from it.
Absolutely. It's that pivot, really from a personal experience, maybe even an insecurity, into a business idea. You see that in a lot of successful entrepreneurial stories.
Totally. So 2015 rolls around. Kylie Cosmetics is born. The flagship product, the Kylie Lip Kit.
Liquid lipstick and a matching liner. Sold only online.
And that first launch.
Yeah.
Didn't it sell out in under a minute?
Less than 60 seconds. It wasn't just high demand. It was like a genuine cultural moment. overnight, basically.
Wow. So suddenly she's 18 years old and she's got this exploding makeup empire on her hands.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that initial success a bit more. What do you think made it work so well beyond just the buzz about her lips?
Well, I think there were a few things working together. First, the direct consumer model was smart. She controlled the whole narrative, kept higher profits.
Right, no middleman.
Exactly. Second, the scarcity factor, these limited drops selling out super fast. That created this huge buzz and like a real sense of urgency for people wanting to buy.
FOMO, basically. Fear of missing out.
Totally. And third, maybe the most important part. She already had this massive, super engaged audience on social media. They felt like they had a direct line to her.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just about wanting lipstick. It was about buying into the whole Kylie look, feeling like you were part of her world. Think about how she built up the hype before the launch, the swatches, the little tutorials, talking directly to fans. It all fed into that crazy demand.
And it clearly wasn't just a one-hit wonder. Kylie Cosmetics blew up way beyond lip kits. Eyeshadow palettes, highlighters, blushes, concealers.
Just tons more lip products, too.
Yeah, endless lip products. And each new launch seemed to sell out just as fast. How does she keep that momentum, that intense loyalty going?
Her use of social media was absolutely central. I mean, platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, later TikTok.
Yeah.
They weren't just side things, they were her main marketing channels. She basically skipped traditional advertising
Right.
by constantly sharing bits of her life, showing herself using the products, talking directly with followers. She built this really powerful feeling of, well, authenticity maybe, or at least relatability, even with a super glamorous lifestyle.
Yeah, it felt more personal somehow.
Definitely. And getting over 100 million Instagram follows by 2018, that gave her this incredible direct line to her customers. Think about how powerful those organic endorsements were. Fans saw her using it, they trusted her opinion, and it felt like joining an exclusive club.
And then she did collaborations too, right, with her sisters and her friend at the time, Jordan Woods.
Yeah, those collaborations were smart too. They tapped into the fan bases her sisters already had, created this sense of a group endorsement. People weren't just buying a product, they felt like they were buying into a lifestyle, maybe even those relationships.
It really leveraged the whole social network effect, didn't it? That trust people put in influencers they follow.
Exactly. It shows that huge shift in marketing personal influence becoming, in many cases, way more powerful than a big ad campaign. It's about building that community, that sense of belonging around the brand.
Okay, so then comes this massive business move in 2019, selling 51% of Kylie Cosmetics to Cardi Inc.,
For around $600 million.
which valued the whole company at almost $1.2 billion. And that's what led to the Forbes cover, calling her the youngest self-made billionaire, which of course caused a huge debate.
Oh yeah, the self-made thing.
That term sparked so much discussion, especially given her family's platform. Let's dig into that a bit. What's your take on how complex that label is for her?
Well, self-made is definitely tricky in Kylie's case, isn't it? I mean, you can't deny she benefited massively from the platform, the resources, the visibility that came with her family's fame.
Of course.
But at the same time, the idea for Kylie Cosmetics, execution, building it up, keeping it successful, you can argue that came down to her own drive and business sense.
So it's kind of both.
It kind of is. It makes you question what self-made even means today when networks and, inherited advantages can play such a big role. Maybe it's fairer to say she was incredibly smart at leveraging the opportunities she had to build this hugely successful business that was distinctly hers. And the fact that a giant corporation like Kavi paid that much, that shows the real tangible value they saw in what she built.
It definitely got people talking. But it wasn't all smooth sailing and business deals, right? There were public challenges too, like the whole Jordan Woods scandal in 2019.
Right. That brought a ton of media attention and really tested that personal brand she'd built.
And she also faced constant criticism about cosmetic procedures and the argument that her success was just because of her family name. How do you think navigating those kinds of things shaped her path?
Well, dealing with those public storms is almost unavoidable when you're that famous in the digital age, right? The Jordan Woods thing really showed how tangled up personal relationships and public image get when your brand is your life.
Yeah, the lines are so blurry.
Totally. And how she handled it, how she responded publicly and, within her business, that definitely affected how her audience saw her resilience, her authenticity, and the criticism about procedures or family fame. That just highlights the constant tightrope walk between personal choices and public perception. Everything she does gets intensely scrutinized.
And while all this was happening professionally, her personal life was changing dramatically too. Her daughter, Stormy Webster, was born in February 2018.
With Travis Scott, yeah. And they kept that pregnancy super private, famously so.
Until the To Our Daughter YouTube video dropped. That gave fans this really intimate look at the pregnancy, early motherhood. And people really connected with that, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. That was a master class in controlling the narrative. The careful reveal, sharing those intimate moments, it let her connect with her audience on a much deeper, more emotional level. It kind of broadened her appeal beyond just people buying makeup. It humanized her, showed this whole new side to her life. That kind of curated vulnerability can be incredibly powerful for building stronger fan connections.
Makes sense. And since then, she's continued juggling motherhood, her businesses, which kept expanding, right?
Yeah.
Kylie Skin, Kylie Baby, other lifestyle stuff.
Yep, expanding the empire.
All alongside the on-again, off-again relationship with Travis Scott, co-parenting. And we've seen reports about her brands focusing more on things like sustainability and inclusivity. What do you think that diversification signals about her long-term plans?
I think the diversification is pretty strategic. She's leveraging the power of the main Kylie brand to move into related areas. Skincare, baby products, these tap into similar but broader markets.
Reaching different customers.
Exactly. And the reported focus on sustainability, inclusivity, that shows an awareness of what consumers care about now. It suggests she's thinking longer term, beyond just the next makeup trend, trying to align the brand with those bigger values.
So as she hit her mid-20s, she's basically this established global brand, but facing even more attention, more pressure. Her skill with social media, that direct fan connection still seems absolutely vital.
Crucial.
But lately, it also feels like she's been a bit more open about the downsides of fame, about her own insecurities. What do you make of that shift towards maybe more transparency?
Yeah, that's an interesting shift. It could be a few things, couldn't it? Maybe it's a genuine attempt to connect more deeply by showing more of her, real self, the less perfect parts of being famous.
Or maybe it's strategic.
Or, yeah, it could be a strategic way to manage her image, build relatability, especially when you're under constant watch. But whatever the reason, it definitely shows she's thinking differently about her public persona, how she wants to present herself now compared to, say, 10 years ago.
And meanwhile, the business keeps growing. Reports mention a focus on product quality, cruelty-free, vegan options, sustainable packaging.
All those things consumers are looking for more and more.
And then her second child, Air Webster, was born, which again really centers that role of motherhood in her public story.
Definitely. Having a second child reinforces that family theme as central to her identity and probably her brand messaging too. How she handles things with her kids, privacy, the products she makes for them. It's all under an even bigger microscope now. And it probably shifts her own perspective on being a public figure, the values she wants to put out there.
It's also been interesting seeing her pop up more in the high fashion world, right? Attending big fashion shows. That feels like a bit of a change from the early days, focused purely on reality TV and her own stuff.
Yeah, that move into high fashion is significant. It could be about wanting to broaden her influence, maybe get taken seriously in a different cultural space beyond just beauty and social media.
Like leveling up her brand.
Kind of. It could open doors for different kinds of collaborations, brand partnerships. It signals an evolution, maybe attracting a different audience segment, too.
But at the same time, it feels like there's more effort to keep some things private compared to the total exposure of the early KUWTK days. Like her appearances on the new Hulu show, The Kardashians. They seem a bit more controlled.
Yeah, more curated, perhaps. And that shift towards having more control over your own narrative, that feels like a pretty natural progression for anyone who's lived under that intense reality TV spotlight for years.
You need some boundaries eventually.
Exactly. Setting boundaries becomes essential just for your own sanity and for feeling like you have some control over your own story. It suggests a more, maybe, mature approach to handling fame.
So looking at her overall impact, Kylie really does seem to represent this, like, new kind of fame, doesn't she? Tied to evolving beauty standards, these digital business models.
For sure.
It's pretty amazing how she took what she saw as a personal insecurity, her lips, and turned it into the foundation of a billion-dollar company, basically changing the beauty industry along the way. What does that tell us about finding opportunities in unexpected places?
It's a really powerful example of entrepreneurial thinking, isn't it? Turning something personal, even maybe negative at first, into innovation and huge commercial success. And her being open about the fillers, well, that definitely fueled a wider conversation about cosmetic procedures, at least online.
And you absolutely cannot talk about the beauty industry now without talking about influencer marketing. Kylie was right at the forefront of that.
Absolutely pioneered it in many ways.
Building this massive direct-to-consumer business, mainly through her own social media, skipping traditional ads. But that's also led to endless discussions about beauty standards, the pressure on young people, the whole Kylie look. What's your take on the wider societal effect of all that?
Well, that's where it gets really complex, right? It brings up important questions about the responsibility that comes with having that kind of massive influence, especially over younger audiences. Kylie often talks about self-expression, personal choice, but the sheer visibility of her look, combined with how accessible cosmetic procedures have become, definitely feeds into ongoing debates about beauty ideals, self-esteem, body image. Yeah, it's a complicated impact.
Still, she has used her platform for some philanthropy, spoken about mental health, showing another side to her influence. And she's undeniably changed celebrity culture, offering this seemingly more personal, accessible image through social media, making millions of followers feel connected.
That's really the hallmark of this social media era, isn't it? Blurring the lines between distant celebrity and someone who feels relatable. Sharing glimpses of daily life, family, even struggles. It creates that sense of intimacy, which builds incredible loyalty to both her and her brands.
Of course, being on all the time online must come with immense pressure. We've heard about her trying to set boundaries, which makes total sense. And motherhood seems like such a core part of her identity now, influencing her choices, hitting over 390 million Instagram followers by 2024. The scale is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, with that level of visibility, everything you do or say carries huge weight. Being a mother adds another layer to her public image and probably guides decisions about what she shares, the values she promotes, and the fact that her following keeps growing. It just shows her staying power, her ability to adapt in this constantly shifting digital world.
Ultimately, Kylie just has this undeniable knack for sparking conversations, challenging things, maybe inspiring people. She's a massive, unavoidable part of pop culture. And with hints that she's still adapting, maybe looking at fashion, wellness, other areas, it really feels like her story is still unfolding.
That ability to adapt is so key for staying relevant long term, especially in fields like beauty, and influencing that change so fast, or exploring different creative paths suggests she wants to keep evolving, maybe even move beyond the things that first made her famous.
So as we kind of wrap up our reflection on Kylie's journey, what are the big lessons we can maybe take away? The sources pointed to a few interesting ones. First, That idea of confidence, turning something you're insecure about into a huge success.
Yeah, that narrative of turning a perceived weakness into a strength is super powerful. It really resonates. It shows how challenges can actually spark innovation, create opportunity.
Then there's taking risks, like starting a business at 18, no formal training, just trusting her gut.
That's a big one. That willingness to just go for it, even without all the experience, that's valuable. It highlights how important passion can be and learning by doing.
And figuring out how to navigate that incredibly famous family while still building her own separate thing. Plus the role family and motherhood play now. That seems like another key theme.
Definitely. That whole dynamic between family ties, personal ambition, public image, it runs through her whole story. Managing to carve out her own identity within that family really speaks to her own drive.
The sources also brought up acknowledging imperfection. Recognizing social media isn't real life, and her being more open recently about struggles.
Yeah, pulling back the curtain on that seemingly perfect online life is important, especially for younger people watching. Admitting vulnerabilities, talking about how curated social media is, that can lead to a healthier understanding of fame and, well, reality.
Adaptability, too. Always learning, shifting with trends, expanding the business way beyond just lip kits.
Absolutely critical. In markets that change so quickly, you have to adapt, innovate, respond to what people want. Her constantly adding new products, exploring new areas, that shows that adaptability in action.
And finally, this idea of evolving from just being an image to maybe having more of a voice by sharing more personal stuff, that seems like a big part of where she is now.
Right. Moving from just being looked at to sharing more personal story and engaging more directly, that can create a much deeper connection with your audience and maybe a more lasting kind of influence.
So here's a final thought for you listening. Kylie Jenner's path is, well, obviously pretty unique, but maybe it offers some broader clues about navigating our world today, this super connected, highly visible world. Think about that balance between showing vulnerability and carefully crafting an image. And think about the power that comes from spotting and actually grabbing those unexpected opportunities. What parts of her story really stick with you? And could you apply any of those lessons, maybe in a totally different way, to your own goals? Definitely something to think about.